Welcome to today's deep dive into some of the most impressive and endangered birds in the Americas, the soaring condors and the striking king vulture. These New World vultures are often overshadowed by their grimmer associations, but their role in ecosystems is absolutely vital. Acting as nature's cleanup crew, they remove carrion before disease can spread, and they've evolved a suite of remarkable traits to do it. In this video, we'll be focusing on the largest and rarest members of the family. Birds that glide for hours without flapping, nest on cliff faces or high in the Andes, and, in some cases, have been rescued from the very edge of extinction. If you'd like to learn more, check out the document in the description with research papers and image credits. In our previous look at this family, we explored some of the stranger adaptations that help New World vultures survive their unusual lifestyle. From bald heads to stomach acids strong enough to dissolve bone, and even why some of them defecate on their own legs. If you haven't seen that yet, be sure to check it out afterwards for a deeper look at the family's shared traits. But today, let's zoom out and ask a different question. Where did these birds come from? What is the evolutionary history of New World vultures? And how did this remarkable family come to include both rainforest specialists and soaring mountain giants? The origins of New World vultures have long puzzled ornithologists. Today, they're classified in the family Cathartidae, and most taxonomies place them within the order Accipitriformes, alongside hawks, eagles, the osprey, and the secretary bird. But for much of the 20th century, their true relationships were far from clear. Early anatomical studies noted unexpected similarities between New World vultures and storks, including shared traits like thermoregulatory behaviours, bare heads, and certain skull and leg structures. This led some researchers to suggest they belonged not with the raptors, but in their own separate order altogether, possibly closer to wading birds. That idea fell out of favour in the late 1990s and early 2000s, when large-scale genetic studies consistently placed Cathartidae within the raptor clade, more specifically as the basal offshoot of Accipitriformes. In other words, they likely share a common ancestor with hawks and eagles, but split from that lineage early in its evolution, possibly over 50 million years ago. The main debate today is whether it should remain within Accipitriformes, or whether it is distinct enough to warrant its own order, but most researchers favour the former. It's important to clarify that the similarities between New World and Old World vultures, like bald heads, powerful digestive systems, and soaring wings, are not signs of close kinship. They are the result of convergent evolution, shaped by shared ecological pressures. While New World vultures are basal within Accipitriformes, Old World vultures are deeply nested within Accipitridae, the same family as hawks and eagles. The Cathartidae fossil record stretches back to the Oligocene or early Miocene, roughly 23 to 25 million years ago. Some of these early fossils already show adaptations for scavenging, such as robust beaks and elongate wings. But the most spectacular fossil relatives appeared much later during the Pleistocene. Chief among them were the Teratons, a now extinct group of massive soaring birds that lived across the Americas. While not members of Cathartidae, they were closely related, sharing a more recent common ancestor than New World vultures do with any living lineages of birds. One of the best known was Teratornis merriami, widespread in western North America until about 10,000 years ago. Standing over a metre tall, with a wingspan of 3.5 to 4 metres, or 11 to 13 feet, it likely filled a similar ecological role to today's condors, scavenging the carcasses of Pleistocene megafauna. Even more remarkable was Argentavis magnificens, a teratorn from Miocene Argentina. With an estimated wingspan of over 7 metres or 23 feet, and a weight of up to 70 kilograms or 150 pounds, it's considered one of the largest flying birds of all time. It may have relied on a combination of soaring flight and slope lift to navigate open landscapes, feeding either on carrion or possibly stealing prey from other animals. Cathartidae itself also has impressive extinct members. Among them is the Cuban condor, Gymnogyps veroni, a close, and likely larger, relative of the modern Californian condor. Known from tar pit deposits, the Cuban condor likely reached a wingspan of at least 3.5 metres or 11.5 feet, and possibly more. While these giants vanished at the end of the last ice age, their legacy lives on in the condors and vultures of the Americas today. But how did these birds come to inhabit such a vast range, from California to the Andes? Fossil evidence suggests that Cathartidae, the true New World vultures, originated in North America, with the oldest known fossils appearing there in the Oligocene and Miocene. Yet, despite their soaring abilities, no definitive cathartid fossils have been found in South America before the formation of the Isthmus of Panama around 3 million years ago. This timing is significant. The isthmus created the first stable land connection between the continents, enabling the Great American Biotic Interchange, a major wave of migration in which many mammals, birds, and other animals crossed between North and South America. It's likely that cathartids followed the movement of megafauna, whose carcasses provided the reliable food sources vultures depend on. Why would they have waited for a land bridge, given their capacity for long-distance flight? One major factor is their dependence on thermal updrafts, rising columns of warm air that make soaring flight efficient. Over open water, thermals are scarce or absent, forcing vultures to expend much more energy if they attempt long crossings. In addition, their reliance on patchy, unpredictable carrion makes finding food mid-journey unlikely, and they need safe places to rest and roost. Interestingly, other large scavenging birds were already in South America well before this point. The extinct teratons appear in Miocene deposits millions of years earlier, suggesting they reached the continent by other means, possibly via temporary land chains or earlier dispersal events. But for Cathartidae, the formation of the isthmus marked the turning point. From that point onward, these birds expanded into South America, eventually radiating into both lowland tropical specialists and soaring mountain giants we know today. As the cathartids spread across South America, they began to diversify, adapting to different environments and ecological roles. The 7 species of cathartids are split into 2 clades. In the last video, we explored one of these, with the black, turkey, and yellow-headed vultures. Today, let's explore the other clade, starting with the striking king vulture. The king vulture, Sarcoramphus papa, is one of the most visually striking birds in the Americas, and easily the most colourful of the New World vultures. With its stark white body, black wing edging, and vividly coloured head marked by reds, yellows, and oranges, it cuts a dramatic figure in the forest canopy. There are 2 theories for their name, the king vulture. The first is that it references their habit of displacing smaller vultures from a carcass and then feeding while they are forced to wait. Alternatively, it may have come from Mayan mythology, in which the bird was a king who served as a messenger between the mortal world and the gods, a status likely inspired by both its regal appearance and its role in the natural cycle of life and death. Found across lowland forests from southern Mexico to northern Argentina, the king vulture is a canopy soarer. Unlike its closest living relatives, the Andean and Californian condors, which favour open mountains and cliffs, the king vulture inhabits dense tropical and subtropical forests, using small clearings and river corridors to take flights. Like the other members of Cathartidae, it relies on thermal uplifts to soar, but is less frequently seen than its relatives due to its more secluded habitat. Although not equipped with a strong sense of smell itself, the king vulture often arrives at carcasses by following other scavengers, particularly the powerful scent-tracking turkey vultures. Once there, its powerful beak and large size often allow it to dominate the site, tearing into hides and tougher material that smaller vultures can't manage. This makes it something of a keystone scavenger. Its ability to open carcasses enables access for smaller scavengers who would otherwise be excluded. In this way, the king vulture plays a crucial role, not just in consuming carrion, but in making it accessible to the broader scavenger community. Unlike its highland cousins, the king vulture is not currently considered endangered, but that doesn't mean it's safe. The species is classified as least concern by the IUCN, but populations are declining across much of its range, primarily due to habitat loss and human disturbance. As tropical forests are cleared for agriculture, cattle grazing, or development, king vultures lose not only their nesting sites, but also their soaring corridors and food sources. Though more adaptable than some specialists, they are still vulnerable to fragmentation, particularly because they require large territories and intact forests to thrive. In some areas, vultures are also threatened by poisoning. This may be accidental, from ingesting carcasses tainted with veterinary drugs or pesticides, or intentional, where scavengers are targeted due to conflict with ranching or perceived associations with disease. While the king vulture hasn't faced the same degree of persecution as the condors, its decline is a warning sign. As a lowland forest scavenger, it plays an irreplaceable role in maintaining ecological health. If we lose birds like the king vulture, the effects will ripple through food webs and nutrient cycles in ways we're only beginning to understand. From the humid lowlands of the tropics, we now climb into the thin air of the Andes, home to one of the largest flying birds alive today, the Andean Condor, Vultur gryphus. The Andean Condor represents an extreme in both size and lifestyle. With a wingspan of up to 3.3 meters or nearly 11 feet, it is the largest bird of prey in the world and the sixth largest flying bird, only behind several species of albatross and pelican. Unlike the king vulture's forest-haunting habits, the Andean Condor is a mountain specialist, soaring for hours over windswept ridges and highland valleys in search of carrion. As the name suggests, the Andean Condor is found in the Andes mountain range, along the western coast of South America, from Argentina to Venezuela. Where the king vulture is colourful and compact, the Andean Condor is stark and imposing, with glossy black plumage, a white neck ruff, and a broad pale patch across the wings. Adult males bear a fleshy crest or caruncle on their head, a trait absent in females, making the species sexually dimorphic, which is rare among vultures. Andean condors rely heavily on slope lift and thermals to support their massive size. Satellite tracking has shown that they can soar for hours, even days, with almost no wing beats, covering vast distances in search of carcasses. These are usually large animals such as deer, cattle, or wild camelids like guanacos, which die high in the mountains or on the rugged steppe. They are extremely long-lived birds, some reaching over 70 years in captivity, and are slow to reproduce. Pairs often mate for life, and courtship involves elaborate displays. Males strut with wings outstretched, bob their heads, and emit hisses and clicks while circling or chasing the female. Nesting sites are typically high on inaccessible cliff faces, where a pair will raise a single chick every 2 or 3 years. Chicks take many months to fledge and remain dependent on their parents for up to a year, an investment that reflects the long, stable pair bonds and high parental care of the species. These traits, while remarkable, also make the condor vulnerable. Its slow reproductive rate means that any loss in adult population takes decades to recover, and despite its formidable size and skill in the air, it is deeply reliant on a healthy landscape below, one that provides both nesting cliffs and large carcasses for food. The species is currently classified as vulnerable by the IUCN. Poisoning, both accidental and deliberate, remains a major threat, especially when ranchers wrongly believe condors kill livestock. Habitat degradation and lead poisoning from ammunition and carcasses also take a toll. Conservation efforts now include captive breeding programs, public education, and reintroduction of birds into parts of their historical range. But as with all long-lived species, success depends not just on population numbers, but on preserving the vast, healthy landscapes these birds require to thrive. But the Andean condor's significance goes far beyond ecology. For many Andean cultures, it is a sacred animal, a symbol of power, endurance, and the skies themselves. In Incan mythology, the condor was a messenger of the gods associated with the sun deity Inti, and believed to carry the spirits of the dead to the afterlife. In parts of the Andes, it is seen as the ruler of the upper world, complementing the puma of the earth and the serpent of the underworld in a sacred triad of life. Today, it remains a national symbol in several countries, including Colombia, Ecuador, Chile, and Bolivia, a reminder that conservation isn't just about numbers, but about identity and meaning. To protect the condor is to preserve not only a keystone scavenger, but a living connection to both deep evolutionary history and the cultural soul of the Andes. From the high Andes to the rugged landscapes of western North America, we arrive at the final member of the cathartid family, the California condor, Gymnogyps californianus. This is a bird that embodies extremes in size, in survival strategy, and in the effort required to save it. Visually, the California condor is unmistakable. It is massive, with a wingspan of up to 3 meters or 10 feet and a weight of around 9 to 10 kilograms. It is slightly smaller than the Andean Condor, but rivals it for the heaviest flying bird in the Americas. Its plumage is almost entirely black, with large pale white patches under the wings that flash in flight. Around the neck is a distinctive ruff of feathers, above which rises a bald, wrinkled head that ranges in colour from pink and orange to pale grey, depending on the bird's age and mood. Males and females are similar in appearance, but each bird has a unique pattern of head markings and facial coloration. In flight, the condor is elegant and silent. It soars with a stillness that belies its size, riding thermal updrafts with outstretched wings. Like all New World vultures, it lacks a well-developed voice box, so it rarely vocalizes, except for hisses or grunts at close range. What it lacks in sound it makes up for in presence. Ecologically, the California condor is a specialist scavenger. It feeds exclusively on carrion, ranging from deer, elk, and marine mammals to livestock and smaller animals. With its long neck, sharp beak, and powerful digestive system, it is adapted to reach deep into carcasses and consume material that would be inaccessible or dangerous to many other animals. Unlike some vultures, it does not rely on scent. Instead, it locates food visually, and often by following other scavengers such as ravens, eagles, or coyotes. Condors are also highly social birds. Feeding sites often draw multiple individuals, with complex dominance behaviours playing out through body posture, wing spreading, and subtle cues. They also roost communally, typically on cliffs or large trees, and maintaining long-term social bonds. Like the Andean condor, they are long-lived and slow to reproduce. Californian condors reach maturity around 6 to 8 years of age and typically lay one egg every second year. The egg is incubated for about 2 months, and the chick remains dependent for many months after fledging, in some cases over a year. Parents, which mate for life, take turns guarding the nest and feeding the chick by regurgitation. This high level of parental care and long reproductive cycle means that population growth is slow even under the best conditions. The California condor once ranged across much of western North America, from British Columbia to Baja California. But by the 20th century, its population had collapsed. The reasons were many: habitat destruction, direct persecution, poisoning, and especially lead toxicity from scavenging animals killed with lead bullets. As humans spread and carrion became less predictable or safe, the condor's fortunes declined. By the early 1980s, only a few dozen condors remained, all in Southern California. The turning point came in 1987, when the last 27 wild individuals were brought into captivity, making the species extinct in the wild. This move sparked fierce debate. Some saw it as dooming the species to extinction in zoos, others saw it as the only option left. That decision proved to be the beginning of a decades-long conservation success story, albeit one still unfolding. Captive breeding programs, managed by institutions such as the Los Angeles Zoo, San Diego Zoo, and Peregrine Fund, laid the foundation. Using techniques such as puppet rearing to avoid imprinting on humans, conservationists slowly grew the population. In 1992, the first condors were reintroduced to the wild. Others followed. In California's Big Sur coast, the Grand Canyon, and Baja California, most recently, in 2022, condors were reintroduced to Northern California through a partnership with the Yurok tribe, restoring a cultural and ecological link that had been severed for over a century. Today, the population has risen to over 500 individuals, with more than half living free in the wild. They are still rated as critically endangered by the IUCN, but this is a massive success given where the numbers were in the 80s. But there is still a lot of work to do, and the wild condors are not yet self-sustaining. Each wild population is still closely monitored, with chicks tagged, tracked, and in some cases rescued and rehabilitated. The biggest threat remains lead poisoning. When condors feed on carcasses or gut piles left by hunters using lead ammunition, they ingest tiny fragments that can cause severe, often fatal poisoning. Despite extensive outreach and the availability of non-lead alternatives, lead remains a persistent problem. especially because condors are so long-lived and reproduce so slowly. Other threats include power line collisions, wildfires, and the ingestion of microtrash, which condors sometimes bring to their nests, mistaking it for bone or food. But the California condor is more than a conservation challenge. For many indigenous people of the western United States, it is a sacred being, a symbol of rebirth, cleansing, and connection to the sky world. Among the Chumash, the condor was part of creation stories. In Yurok and Karok traditions, it is a guardian and spiritual figure. Today, these communities are not only helping bring the condor back, they are helping to restore ancient relationships between people, place, and animal. To see a Californian condor wheel across the sky is to witness something rare, not just a survivor of the Ice Age, but a symbol of what is possible when science, culture, and community come together. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the soaring world of New World vultures. From cloud forests to canyon cliffs, these birds are more than just scavengers. They are ecosystem engineers, cultural icons, and survivors from ancient lineages. The three species we've explored today might be giants, but their role are anything but heavy-handed. Whether it's the forest-foraging king vulture, the wind-riding Andean condor, or the hard-won return of the Californian condor, each tells a story of evolution, resilience, and our own role in shaping the natural world. If you haven't already seen it, be sure to check out my earlier video on the other 4 species of New World vultures, linked at the end of the video. So if this video sparked your curiosity, don't let it stop here. Share it, talk about it, and keep learning. There's so much more to learn about the overlooked roles animals play in the ecosystems around us. And the more we understand, the better chance we have of protecting them, just as we've begun to do with the Californian condor. Thanks for watching. If there's another fascinating species you'd like to learn more about, let me know in the comments below.